We have already discussed the 3-game Thanksgiving NFL DFS slate. It is now time to turn our focus to the NFL DFS main slate in Week 13, where we've got some pretty fun games on tap, including a big-time showdown between the Baltimore Ravens and the Philadelphia Eagles, which will obviously be a key focal point within our DFS lineups. Today, we're going to break down which games we want to stack. We're going to talk about some injuries to monitor throughout this week and more to get you ready for the Week 13 NFL DFS main slate. Welcome on into the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every single week by Brandon Gdula. You can find him on X at Gdula13. Find him on Blue Sky at Gdula as well. He is a senior managing editor for FanDuel Research. Brandon, it is a delightful week in the football sphere. We get the Thanksgiving slate tomorrow, NFL DFS main slate on Sunday after that. And it's a pretty fun one too, based on the way things look as of right now. So how are you doing today?
As you know, it's been a week for me. Bit congested, but drinking some tea, which I hate. Got some hot sauce going as well to try to clear things out. So I'm doing
the hot sauce in the tea.
No, but
okay. I'm doing consider it.
I mean, it can't make tea taste any worse.
All right, next time I want you to experiment with this because, like, frankly, why not? I want a report back on if hot sauce and tea is the key to making tea more palatable.
You don't like tea either?
I've grown to like it because I found it's not because of the taste. This is a very 33-year-old man take. It calms me before bed.
So you're like a chamomile guy?
I don't know. I don't know what they're called. I just know that I put the little packet in the water and it makes me happy. It's very odd. It's only at night. It's decaf. It's only at night. But yes, It's not replaced coffee. I can't do that. But like, yes, I have become a somewhat regular tea drinker at night, and I'm slightly ashamed. Good thing no one listens to this, so we're good, right? It's not like we broadcast this over YouTube, Spotify, Apple, etc. We're fine. It's a safe space.
There's nothing wrong with tea, aside from the taste. But like, I know people like tea. My wife likes tea a lot, but I just much prefer coffee. Every tea I've ever had is kind of just not really palatable. I'll drink some chamomile if I need to. So that's what I thought we're gonna bond over chamomile, but you just drink generic.
It's peppermint. Decaf. I don't know what chamomile is, frankly. Like I've heard the word.
It's like a specific flower.
Okay.
I think my mom used to grow it.
Does tea come from flowers? I think
it's like plants. So maybe it's a flowering plant. I don't know.
I've been told it is chamomile. I've heard from sources above that it is chamomile.
Okay. I kind of figured this, but I've never heard of chamomile. But again, I'm like a black coffee guy, so I don't know.
Where does T. Higgins rank among teas for you?
Number one
by a mile, correct?
Yeah.
So T rankings are Higgins 1, chamomile 2, everything else fighting for third/last.
There's Mrs. T's around here. She makes pierogies,
that sounds good.
So she'd probably be third.
All right, so Mrs. T's can rank third behind T and T Higgins and chamomile. T Higgins is in play for this week, facing the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to talk about that game more so about his teammate in the backfield than about the passing game specifically. We're talking about some games we want to stack on this main slate as well. Interest to monitor. Obviously, we're recording on Wednesday afternoon, so a lot of stuff will change injury-wise as the week goes along, but kind of giving you an overview of where we're at before all that injury news rolls on, which guys are watching as far as injuries go, and much more to get you ready for the Week 13 main slate. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to the FanDuel Research Podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Our Thanksgiving DFS breakdown is already posted. We're game by game breaking down our top plays in each game across Thanksgiving and our top priorities at each position on FanDuel for the 3-game Thanksgiving main slate. That again is on the FanDuel Research Podcast feed. Just search for that wherever you get your podcasts, then hit subscribe if you like what you hear. leave us a 5-star rating and review as well. And of course, on this YouTube page as well, we have our week 13 NFL best bets up. Went game by game with that and Ultra Talk Thanksgiving. That is on this YouTube page. Find that there. And while you're there, hit subscribe and enable notifications and leave us a thumbs up. We appreciate those of you watching on YouTube. As always, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more in the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/Chat Connecticut. Visit MD Gambling Help Oregon, Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look at the slate overview here for week number 13 on the main slate. Brandon, obviously, we're still kind of looking at this from a top-down view because we haven't had time to dig into this, full slate. And we'll kind of talk through it as the show goes along for today. But when you first looked at this slate, what was the key thing that stood out to you on FanDuel?
Enough good games. So even though we were losing 4 games during the week between Thanksgiving and Black Friday, plenty of games, enough good games, a couple games that we can pretty easily rule out. So that's nice to see. But I think it's going to be about figuring out the game stacks that we really want to play. There's one game in particular at the top, I would say, for probably both of us with Baltimore and Philly. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty concentrated offense on both sides, which is really what you want to see. So that's helpful. But figuring out other game stacks. And I would also say there's a couple, I don't want to steal all the topics, but I'll leave it at that.
No, go ahead.
There are a couple potential injuries that could open up a lot of value at running back that will change the slate. If we do not get those plays, changes everything. If we get one of those plays, they'll change the stuff. If we get multiple, really kind of flips the slate on its head, as they say. So we always advocate, spend time with family during Thanksgiving week.
Of course.
But as I feel like it's always Thanksgiving week, you get a lot of potential questionable injuries that could change things. So we'll figure stuff out by Sunday, but we're going to do our best here on Wednesday to break it all down.
And I think for me, kind of building off what you were saying, there are quality plays in each tier, I guess is what I would say, which makes me excited about the possibility of getting those value plays. Because if I don't get the value plays, I can live in the mid-range. There are a good number of mid-tier running backs who stand out to me. I do like the mid-tier at wide receiver as well. Actually, quite a bit, frankly, at receiver. I think those guys are really pretty solid. So I do like that as well. But then if we get some value to open up, means I can go heavy Lamar Jackson. I can load up on skill players in that Rams-Saints game. I can get to A.J. Brown more aggressively. And I think that's all pretty intriguing to me. So I think that's what's encouraging to me about this slate is I feel good about it no matter how things break because I can go balanced. I'll be fine with that. There are guys with upside there. But then if I get the ability to spend up for studs, I'm going to feel pretty good about that as well.
And there are a lot of studs. There's studs at every position this week.
There are a lot, and it's a great feeling to have for sure. Let's begin things here with the injury discussion for week number 13. And again, we're recording on Wednesday afternoon, so keep that in mind. Make sure you circle back on Sunday morning, check out injury news as you're filling out your lineups to close things out. But as of today, the big one to note is Breece Hall. Sat out practice Wednesday due to knee soreness. He apparently got hurt before their bye week. Returned to the game there, but still sore on Wednesday. And I think that's concerning because they had a bye and that's lingering. So interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich said he's hopeful that Breece Hall plays, but it's one to monitor for sure. So if Breece does sit, How would you view Braylon Allen against the Seahawks this week?
Yes, this is going to be an interesting one. Braylon Allen's salary is only $5,300. Now, I'm always maybe cautious to a fault with projecting backs into a bigger role, what they'll kind of look like. But I think it's a little different here because the only reason Braylon Allen is not playing more is because Breece Hall is so good.
Right.
So, early on, Breece Hall had a Braylon Allen problem that's kind of like subsided a bit. Now, I don't expect Braylon Allen to get like near the target share that Breece Hall gets. So it's not a 1-to-1, but there's a lot of room for error at a $5,300 salary. And again, we can expect goal line work from Braylon Allen. We can expect a pretty good workload here. So I know I'm always cautious about getting out over my skis whenever it comes to saying this backup running back is going to have a great role. This feels different to me, and I feel pretty optimistic here. So I'm not saying he's 100% play because I think there are paths to failure.
Yeah.
Even at the salary, if he gets you 7 points, it's going to really be hard to overcome that, especially with some guys on the slate who can really, one guy on the slate just went for over 300 scrimmage yards. You're not going to compete with that unless you get everything else right. So very, very interested. I know that's a bit of a deviation, but I think I can feel validated there. How about you?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that we've talked before on the show about how we've done like studies in how often lower salaried backs who are popular hit, and they hit at a very high rate in terms of like hitting both like a good baseline, but also a ceiling. And the reason we want to go there is it's projectable volume, but also it's the kind of volume we want where he'll get some passing game work. We know he'll get the goal line stuff too. I think the Jets probably should be favored in this game, at least according to my stuff. So like, I think we can have somewhat high expectations for them. I know the vibes are weird there, but like everything they've said this week has been encouraging to me at least. So I agree with you where it's like maybe not 100%, but like pushing it. And it's at least a viable question to ask if you should be 100% because like he does check every box you want as far as like a value back at $5,300.
Seattle, not a good rush defense.
Yeah, they've been a bit better. Maybe it's just the James Conner scars for me, where he had 8 yards last week. They've been better since the bye with Ernest Jones being there and Mike McDonald cooking. But yeah, they've been one we could exploit previously for sure. Brock Purdy got in a throwing session early this week. He was pain-free there. They're saying that he should be good to go, but the Niners are liars on injuries. So if Purdy is back, how willing are you to trust the Niners offense against the Bills?
Define back, like full by Friday back?
Full by Friday. Yeah, let's go full by Friday.
Pretty interested then.
Yeah.
Purdy's a good quarterback. He's proven that. Don't really need to question it. If he's pain-free already and is full by Friday, then there aren't a lot of reasons to worry. We're getting some salary reductions for everyone but George Kittle. Deservedly so. George Kittle is just great. But his salary is still $7,800. Deebo Samuel, you might have to sell. You won't have to sell me on the ceiling. You have to sell me on anything beyond that in game stacks, which I don't think I can get there just based on what I've seen from Deebo. But Juwan Jennings still really involved. His salary is $6,100. If you get Purdy full, I think Jennings was shaping up to be, I don't want to say like a lock play for us last week, but then Purdy wasn't active. So, it's one of the things we didn't fully get into like to the extent that maybe we could have. But if Purdy's full and Jennings is 61, he's one of the best plays of the week. So I feel good there.
Like if Purdy's full and not questionable, then it's like Jennings is like a cash game play at that point to me with his salary down 61, the role he's had in this offense. If Purdy is full and questionable, then it's like, okay, I'll use him in tournaments. Kind of make the assumption, okay, what are the odds Brock Purdy is like actually okay? Then I could see myself going pretty heavy at him and kind of going that way. But if Purdy is full and off the injury report, I'll be heavy on Juwan Jennings. It would boost me on Christian McCaffrey significantly. I think this Bills defense is very good, but I also think they can be gettable on the ground. No, McCaffrey, like Ben Select did some good stuff this week. I can't remember if it was on Blue Sky or Twitter. He was showing like a graph of next gen stats, top speeds for Christian McCaffrey, and he has not reached his lowest top speed from a game last year yet. So like he's been slower. I'm not sure if that will change, but like he's still been good enough despite the fact that he's been slower. So I'd be high on McCaffrey if we get Purdy out there too. So both Jennings and McCaffrey would be really solid plays. Debo last week like looked good. He had a kickoff return that went almost to the house, got called back. He had a nice reception, went for 21 yards. So I think the explosion is there, which is why I think the ceiling is still there. The median expectation, like you said, is still not good. But like I think the ceiling is still there. So he wouldn't be a cash game play. Jennings would be. I would get to Debo in tournaments. I get to McCaffrey in tournaments. Again, dependent on the practice reports around Purdy and how good he is to go by Friday.
Oh, is that a tell?
She's been grumpy all day, so I don't know if that's a good thing for Purdy. That might be bad. I don't know.
Okay.
Like you said, we got to track the Rosa Parks to see if it's positive, but I'm somehow more nervous about it. So I don't know. Get healthy, Brock. Be out there, man. Yes. We need you. Other side of that game, Dalton Kincaid didn't practice Wednesday due to his knee injury. Keon Coleman, though, did return to a limited session, meaning he could be back after a 3-game absence. You'll talk about the Bills' offense in the trend section. Commanders could be without both Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. Eckler sustained a concussion in week 12. He's not going to go. Robinson had an ankle injury, but did practice on Wednesday. He's practiced and then not played this year, but that was on a hamstring. And now, no Eckler too, so they could kind of force him out there. But if both those guys sit, how would you view Jeremy McNichols at $6,700 against the Titans?
Yeah, you seem higher on McNichols than I would be due to the matchup, but
sure. Yeah.
They released Chris Rodriguez last weekend. They didn't think that they would get to this position necessarily. So it's not a great vote of confidence for Rodriguez in the first place. But what's kind of like your ceiling expectation for McNichols? Is it more about, not that it's not the floor, but is it like you would just anticipate the median without both of those backs is like an 85% snap rate and just a lot of high leverage work here?
I would say 75% snap rate. And I like to tie running backs to quarterbacks who can run. That's a big part of it. Because they've done studies that have shown that running backs are more efficient when the quarterback is there with his legs. So that boosts McNichols. Obviously, that's the primary thing. Secondary thing is that it's a revenge game because he did play for the Titans for a couple years. That's number 2 on the list. So I think that's the main thing. I agree with you where I don't want to use backs against the Titans most often. So like I've soured on him a bit. I think it was probably because I had the expectations that he'd be lower than 67 when I opened up the player pool on Tuesday. So I would definitely get there for sure if there's no Robinson and no Eckler. Obviously, I'd have a strong preference for Braylon Allen. I would still prefer Chase Brown at 73 over Robinson or over McNichols at 67. So like he would not be a locked in value play, but he's a guy I would definitely get exposure to in tournaments because he's tied to Jaden Daniels, who I know hasn't been like amazing recently, but is still a good quarterback from what I've seen. And he'll be like the primary guy because, like you said, they did release Rodriguez. They signed to the active roster and then released him like a couple days later. It was really weird. So I think that's a signal to us that they would make McNichols like borderline featured in that scenario.
Yeah, it comes back to not backing myself into a play due to salary, which this kind of isn't. If he were 5,700, I'd be backing myself there. I think that he should be in line for one of the highest snap rates of any player, but maybe they just kind of throw the ball more. I don't know that we need to get there, which is helpful. But it's not to say that I think that I wouldn't get there. So, if we don't get Allen, we're not that high on Gus Edwards specifically.
Correct.
But if he's the lowest salaried back I get to, I'm not going to hate it because he should be
like, I like him more than Ramondre at 64. I like him more than Rashad White at 65, more than ETN 66, guys like that.
Yeah.
So I prefer him over them. I prefer Chase Brown over him as mentioned, but, and Aaron Jones is 77. It's kind of in that I know that's a large gap, but like it is kind of similar. I think Chuba Hubbard, frankly, is kind of in that discussion too. So there are enough guys in the mid range that we could get to as well.
Bucky.
We'll talk about him in the trend section. My guy. You mentioned Gus Edwards.
Tony Pollard or McNichols.
Does Tyjae Spears play?
If he's out.
If Tyjae Spears is out, Tony Pollard.
Yeah, like pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. Yep. All right. We're on the same page with McNichols. After all.
I agree. J.K. Dobbins has a knee injury. He will not play this week. Hassan Haskins led the team in snaps in that game, but Gus Edwards would mix in as well. I'd expect Kamani Vidal to play a key role as well. We'll talk about that game in the bookmaker section. Tyjae Spears, as you mentioned, missed last week due to concussion. Tony Pollard's role was really, really good there. Spears still in concussion protocol. He still has 3 days to clear, though, so that doesn't mean he'll sit this week. I think people get confused about that. Like they hear he's still in concussion protocol on Wednesday. It's like, no kidding. He hasn't practiced yet. He literally cannot clear concussion protocol. Come on. So sorry. How would you view Pollard against the Commanders if Spears were to sit again?
Love him, kicking myself because I took what the team said about wanting to scale him back and just was like, well, okay, even if Spears is out, they still want to scale back Tony Pollard. It was not so much that they felt like they needed to scale back Tony Pollard, but just make that more of an equal workload. So I missed that one, last week. Same. It hurt because we liked Pollard pretty much all year.
Yeah.
Until his role scaled back a smidge. So if there's no Spears, they literally just told us what they want to do with Tony Pollard, and it's give him, maybe he doesn't hit 90% of snaps again, but he played 94% of the snaps. Just a great workload. He's a great player. This would also be an easy way to get access to Jaden Daniels and any commander that we might want. So, that list is mostly Jaden. So I get that, but Pollard and Jaden just as its own stack, not the worst thing.
No. If you look at the most relevant sample for each guy in this slate, Pollard without Spears has the highest adjusted opportunities per game, which is carries plus 2x targets. He's at 31 in that sample. Second best is Alvin Kamara, 30.9. So he's not as talented or as good as Kamara, and his offense isn't as good, but you're getting that kind of workload, different kind of workload. So it's a lot more carries versus targets, but you're getting that kind of workload at $7,000 in a good matchup too. I'd take that all day. So, he would be above Brown. I like Chase Brown a lot, but I'm going to go back and forth on that. But he'd be in that discussion, which is saying a lot because I adore Chase Brown this week.
Is it mostly matchup based for Brown that is any hesitation?
That's the reason why I hesitate. Offensive expectations are why I think I wound up settling on Brown anyway.
I'm fine with that. I was just curious because I like both. Yeah. And maybe this is the injury that we're waiting for is Spears to sit again. And then you can just kind of play. Got a lot of names in that 7K range. So maybe that's the play.
Devontae Smith missed week 12 due to a hamstring injury. No word on whether he'll be back for this week. We'll talk about the Eagles in the bookmaker section. Josh Downs, a long shot to play this week due to a shoulder injury. Colts are on the road against the Patriots. Are you willing to use any other guys if Josh Downs does wind up sitting for this game? Come on.
What? What's his salary? What's his 66?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So basically with Richardson and Downs active, Pittman's leading in target share. He showed some life last week. He's getting healthier. 66 is a bit much though.
I thought that you were saying it was too low. Okay, cool.
Oh, no.
Okay, cool. All right.
Pittman is the prototypical kind of guy I talk myself into.
Yeah.
Which I don't like to do.
Okay.
But what about JT? Oh,
yeah.
I'm assuming these are bad.
Yeah.
Or
you just mad at me for being dismissive.
Did you train her to bark? Did you train her to bark whenever you say that? Okay.
What do we
much more interested in Jonathan Taylor?
Yes. I'd agree with that too. JT $7,900 against the Patriots. He's another guy who benefits from the fact that his quarterback can run, which can lead to increased efficiency. I know he had 11 carries for 35 yards this past week, but he played almost every snap. I know you can't
96%,
tell.
Yeah.
They ran 12 plays and he got the ball 11 times. So that's not too bad. I just have a hard time getting to pass catchers when I know the quarterback's going to complete like 13 passes. Like that's really tough for me. But
Are
Taylor,
you talking
yeah. Like to wrap up the thoughts on them, I do think that Taylor's a solid play. What are your thoughts on him against I think, pretty gettable Patriots defense?
Definitely don't mind it. I don't know that he'd be a primary play.
Agreed.
Not really going to play any Patriots to bring it back with, although maybe you can try to convince me on Hunter Henry again.
I think he's a fine play again.
I think he's fine too. Yeah. But just wanted to point out, if you look at the box score, nothing's really going to put you on Jonathan Taylor. But like you said, almost every snap, 96% snap rate.
Yeah.
They got, Detroit just bled the clock like crazy. The Colts had the ball for under 23 minutes. Like, it shouldn't happen again. So Taylor's kind of interesting from a pivot play, but I don't think he's going to come near the top of the list for running back. So,
and he'd be below Aaron Jones for you, correct?
Yep.
Okay. I agree with that too. So let's take a look at the bookmaker section for this week and try to look at some games we're considering stacking on FanDuel. And that does begin with what I think is the most fun, like actual football game on the slate. That is the Eagles at the Ravens. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, Ravens favored by 3. Total in this game is very, very high. 51.5 right now is where things stand right there. Mentioned before, Devontae Smith, still waiting word on him for this week, but was working off to the side during practice for today. So that kind of says to me he's probably not going to play, which is good for A.J. Brown, good for Dallas Goedert. Against a pass defense we've been targeting quite a bit in the Ravens. We like the Ravens offense. I know the Eagles defense have been playing pretty good recently. Well, really, really well recently. But I still think the Ravens can beat anyone personally. So I'm really high in this game. Where do you settle in on Eagles at Ravens?
I'm high on it because you can kind of get in and get out.
Yeah.
You know who you're playing.
Yeah.
You can play either quarterback. You can play A.J. Brown. You can play Zay Flowers. You can play Dallas Goedert. You can play Saquon and Derrick Henry. I'd be receptive to the idea that Mark Andrews continues to scale up. His route rate was up a little bit, but wasn't anything outrageous, so don't want to overreact to that. But that's about, like, I know that's kind of a lot of names, but it's also not, and they all have upside. So I don't know what my favorite stack would be. I think I'd lean Lamar over Hurts, which would put me on Zay and hopefully A.J. Brown. I wouldn't be against Goddard. Would be interested to see like a Saquon run back there if we actually get the running back value, but I'd be receptive to a conversation about someone like Rashad Bateman, but the list really cuts off abruptly.
Yeah.
So it's easy to like the game. You could sell me on it being a little bit more like Philly tries to play keep away, just run the ball, and there's not as much, a lot of rushing, not a lot of play volume. I could see that happening, but overall, like I said, easy to like. Not that easy to nitpick if we're being honest.
Yeah.
And we just kind of know where to go.
Yeah. The only nitpick would be salaries, but like we might have the ability to get there anyway. So I agree with you where it's like an aggressively fun game. And that does begin with the quarterbacks, I think, because Saquon Barkley went bananas on Monday. I think that we're going to see a reduction in the projected roster rate for Jalen Hurts, because we'll see if you allocate $9,200 to the Eagles, probably going to want that on Saquon as opposed to Hurts, but Hurts does still have a lot of upside. Now, I do ding him when there's no Devontae Smith because he's a good football player and you expect passing efficiency to decline, but it's Jalen Hurts. The rushing can be there for sure. He's been a good scrambler this year. The rushing yardage upside has been better this year I haven't fact checked that, but it's felt better than it has in recent years. So, and again, this Ravens pass defense is not very good and funnels work towards the pass. So I think that Hurts makes a lot of sense and I prefer him over Saquon, but I still think that Lamar is the QB1 for me in large part because his salary is $8,700. He's like $500 to $700 under salaried, I think. Is that fair?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably 5.
Yeah.
Given the matchup and stuff.
Like if he were the same salary as Hurts, I'd be like, okay, cool. That makes a lot of sense. But instead it's 87. He's been really fun to watch as a rusher. Eagles defense is very good, but Lamar has faced good defenses already this year. Faced the Chargers this past week. Their defense has been good. 22.58 points there. Faced the Steelers, very familiar with him. So like, I don't want to care too much about that, but then faced Denver, who's been awesome. And 280 yards, 3 touchdowns on 19 attempts. Didn't have to run because they were blowing him out. So when we've seen Lamar face good defense, he's mostly been very good. So for $8,700, I'm going to have a really, really hard time not putting him in like my primary lineup this week because like I just think he's like, if I can't get to Zay, that's fine. I just want Lamar in there because I think that he is like a foundational level piece within this slate. So to me, Lamar QB 187, really, really fun there. Is Lamar your QB1 above Hurts, I assume, correct?
Yeah. The other thing too, when we talk about this, we've talked about this in recent weeks where you got to factor in how many upside guys there are. Yeah. There are, I'll call them 4. Yeah. You know, I'll throw Jaden Daniels in there, especially with the rushing that we had. But we got Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson. You're betting against all 4 of them to have a big game if you target a pocket passer. Now, of course, if a pocket passer in the low 7s gets you 30, 27, something like that, you're fine. Yeah. That's not lost on me, but I don't see a lot of like those value pocket passers that I'm enamored with, and that matchup where they can just go off efficiency, indoors, that kind of stuff. Don't really see it. So it elevates me on the top quarterbacks this week. And then I keep going back to Lamar, even if I'd play him without anybody else, because the target shares here, it's like Zay, and then it's everybody else. If Zay doesn't have a huge game, you can still get a big game from Lamar without having him stacked with anybody. So I would probably need to be talked out of Lamar as QB1 from a process standpoint. But with Lamar lower salaried than Hurts, Saquon at the same salary as Hurts, it's another reason to think that Hurts will go more overlooked in tournament.
Right. So like if you give me 2 tournament lineups, I'm probably going Lamar 1, Hurts the other one, the more I think about it. Especially if we get enough value to get to Hurts, I think that would be the way I'd go. Running backs here, Saquon Barkley salary 92, Derrick Henry 9,000. If you look at these guys in their most relevant samples, they are psychopaths. Saquon now averaging 149.9 yards from scrimmage per game. Henry's at 118.4, but like has the ability to get you 200 too. And that's definitely viable. So obviously Saquon is the preferred guy here over Henry because tougher matchup, but like Henry's matchup isn't super easy either. Do you view either guy as being a priority at running back after considering salary and other slate context this week?
They should be in that conversation, but I don't quite know if I can get them there.
Yeah.
Henry, we'll go Saquon because you pulled him up. Like, the yardage itself is phenomenal. He still has the touchdown concerns.
Yeah.
It's not totally accurate, but it's kind of on him to score from outside the 20 or from outside the 5.
Right.
Like, it's kind of the reality. If he does it, the yardage is virtually always there. Yes. So he's going to have a ceiling. Again, that's not lost on me. But if you're allocating 92 for a running back, you probably don't want too many questions in terms of nitpicking to the level of priority plays.
Yeah.
So that's going to make it sound like I'll never play Saquon in a particular matchup. That's not really the case. But if I get value, if I get Braylon Allen, I want that to matter.
Correct. You want to weaponize the value.
I don't want that to get me to, no offense to Tony Pollard or
100%.
Like even an Aaron Jones or Chuba Hubbard. I want that to be the reason I can play Saquon.
Agreed.
Similar with Henry, although I have more concerns with him. I think. Yeah. What's your model have this game at?
High. I have the Ravens favored by 4.7. So
okay, so you think they will play from ahead? Okay,
I hope they play from ahead.
But it's a matter of how good are the Eagles? Is Henry going to get scripted out at all? That's a factor. Now, the reason none of this really matters for me is because I'm going to be here pretty often, so I'll get there. But from a primary lineup standpoint, I don't know that I'm quite there just yet.
Yeah.
If I plug in like a Braylon Allen, then and just make some assumptions, I'm probably going to build around the 6,000 range at receiver. I can get there, so I want to.
Yeah.
I'll frame it that way. I do want kick a I always hate saying this, like stars and scrubs, but
yeah,
it's really enticing this week, specifically quarterback and running back for me.
I agree. Let's talk about the pass catchers. Again, AJ Brown selling $8,800. There's no Devontae Smith. He is well worth that in this matchup against the Ravens. So AJ Brown is one of those guys who can break a slate because he has like Saquon-esque upside. Hasn't really shown that this year. His max FanDuel points is 23.6, but he has that in him. Like, he's one of those guys where you're like, okay, AJ Brown hung 40. You tell me that on Monday morning. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's not like cool, good game, but like I'm not gonna my jaw won't drop if that happens. Zay Flowers salary $7,100. I think that's also frankly a bit too low. Target share for Zay Flowers sitting like the 26% range. So pretty good in that regard. Trying to pull up the actual numbers, 26% with a 36% deep target share. He can have poor games. So Zay is not a guy I think I really need to get to for like a cash game. Prefer some other guys over him. But like, as far as my Lamar lineups, a healthy number then will have Zay Flowers in them. So talk to me about the pass catchers, AJ Brown, Zay Flowers, and the other secondary pieces for both teams.
Yeah, so when you talk about AJ Brown not showing that ceiling, if you pull up his game log and look at the target totals, they're not bad.
Yeah.
But if you would then pull up Jalen Hurts' box score and look at the passing attempt numbers, they're pretty bad.
Yeah.
So what you're expecting here, if you're playing Brown, is that Jalen Hurts doesn't throw 22 times.
Right.
You're probably hoping that he throws 32 or
correct.
I don't know if we'll get to 42. He did throw for 38 against the Saints, but that's all part of it. And Brown's market shares are absurd. The only thing really keeping him in check is the passing volume. So you have to extrapolate that in the game context. So Brown, very, very interesting. But we don't really build lineups like, okay, you have 9,000 for a flex, or you have AJ Brown or Derrick Henry, or you have 92, or you playing Saquon or Brown. It's not really what we're getting at here.
Yeah.
But Brown's upside, like you said, very interesting. And I'm starting to think that Hurts will just be a little bit overlooked himself.
Sure.
Due to what we laid out. So that's appealing. And the same thing applies to Zay Flowers.
Sure.
These are sort of the two, kind of like AJ Brown light in the sense of look at the target numbers. They're not.
Don't look at their build. Do not look at their build. Then you can't count.
Yeah. That's why I said
AJ Brown, very light.
Yeah. But it comes down to, are you expecting Lamar to throw 20 times here?
Yeah.
And you know what? If you sit back and say, yeah, they're both going to throw 20 times because they're just going to run the ball, both teams, that's a take. I think that's viable. I think that's valuable. If you think that this game goes over and there's more passing and it's back and forth, Zay Flowers and AJ Brown basically always lead their team in target share. Don't see that kind of changing. So love both of them. Dallas Goedert's in an interesting position at tight end this week. I said there's some studs at every position. That does apply to tight end as well. Goddard has a big ceiling. We saw the 170-yard game not that long ago. It feels like a while ago, but without Devontae Smith, he's the wide receiver too. And again, it comes back to how much are they going to throw. So I like Goddard more than Rashad Bateman as a sort of tertiary piece here.
Yes.
I'm not against Bateman again because I'm assuming if I'm stacking this game that it's a back and forth game. But he's kind of in that it takes more than just one play to be relevant. So even at 55, there's not enough here to want to go at him outside of game stacks. So again, I think we know who the plays are. I'm okay with basically Bateman outside of that, but nobody else would be in the conversation. So it's a nice game to sort of be around and build different iterations of.
Yeah. I think if I have like 10 Lamar lineups, I have 7 with Zay Flowers, probably 1 with Rashad Bateman, and then 2 either with Henry or Lamar naked.
So no Andrews?
I'd probably filter him in a couple, like a double stack within there. So I'd have some because like, yeah, his route rate's not very good. And yeah, there's still concerns around his role, but like he can produce and his salary is low at 56. So I think there's enough there to filter him into Lamar stacks, maybe with Hurts stacks, but probably prefer Goddard there too. So yeah, it's a good game.
I have the Jalen Hurts headshot pulled up on my screen and you pulled up Mark Andrews and I had to do a double take.
Did it look
just
similar?
Like very similar, like haircut and beard. It's like if you look at it super close, you're not going to think that. But in
I see it. I see the vision. I can get behind this. So doppelgangers,
doing, like bug-eyed,
yeah, doppelgangers. Yeah. I like that for sure. Okay, any final thoughts for you on this game?
No.
Let's talk about the second game with the second highest total on the slate. Weirdly, that's Rams Saints. When I was like building out my model, my sheets for this week, I was like, oh man, I'm going to like Rams Saints for DFS. It's not going to catch a lot of attention because it's not super sexy by any means. I looked at the market and it's at 48.5. It was 49.5 earlier today. So it's come down a point. But the Rams favored by 2.5. That was 3. It's still kind of 3 though, because you're paying minus 122 to lay the 2.5 instead of the 3. So it's effectively a 3-point spread. Still, you'll be shocked to hear my model has the Saints favored in this game. I know it's not a surprise to anyone who knows how my numbers have viewed the Saints at times this year. I'm not getting out of the quarterback here. I don't think that's a hot take by any means, but we know who's going to get the ball on both sides. So from like a mini stack perspective, I think this game is hard. Like it goes hard. How do you view the skill guys in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go Puka over Kupp yet again.
Yeah.
We love Alvin Kamara. He might be our favorite running back on the board yet again. And then you got Taysom Hill. Like, Taysom Hill at his salary of $7,000 coming off the 3 touchdown game, over 40 FanDuel points. I get it. The role itself didn't change. It was better. But it wasn't like, oh, he took over at quarterback and also played starting running back because there was no Kamara. He broke a lot of big plays. He's a very good football player. He's got a good enough red zone role to consider it. The question here is, do you just take like a Taysom Hill, Kyren Williams stack and hope you get all the touchdowns?
Could. I mean, you could do the same thing with Kamara too, though, frankly. Kamara and Kyren.
Yeah.
Like I know they all broke Taysom's way last week, but like they could go to Kamara because Kamara's like red zone role is still good. So like looking at Kamara specifically, because as you mentioned, he's very possibly our RB1 for the entire slate. Look at the games Kamara has played with Derek Carr. He's at 19 carries and 6 targets per game. He has 126.9 yards per game. That is third behind Saquon Barkley and Chase Brown. If you look at Chase Brown without Zach Moss, much smaller sample there. And the red zone share for Kamara is still 45% in that time. Now, some of those games were without Taysom, so like it's a little bit misleading, but we've seen Kamara have these massive spike games. He has not scored a touchdown in the past 5 games. Despite that, he still has a game with 27.5 FanDuel points, and he's been above 13 2 other times. That's insane for a running back at $8,300, who you're like, yeah, 2 touchdowns well within his range of outcomes. I'm going to even like, so we'll get Braylon Allen. If we get Braylon Allen, like he'll be the RB1. Like that's fine. Sure. Outside of that, it's going to be hard for me to imagine anybody catapulting Kamara as my RB1 for this week. Do you think that's too aggressive given that Taysom can take some goal line stuff away from him?
So no touchdowns in his last 5, like you pointed out, but 24% target share in that span, which is nuts. And 41% of the red zone plays. So carries and targets going his way. Like you said, it's still a good role. It might feel like Taysom gets all of the red zone work. It's not really the case. the yardage upside's there. It's a matchup that we should not worry about. So I'm trying to like nitpick and say,
yeah,
but I mean, like, look at what Saquon just did here. I'm not saying that's going to happen for Kamara, but
could.
he's got yardage already. He's got touchdown regret, like for the season, because he scored a lot early. He's actually kind of fit, like on par. He's a little bit under. I think I have him about 0.7 touchdowns fewer than he should have. But you still inject the role into this matchup. He's just the RB. I mean, he's the RB1 based on what we know Wednesday.
Yeah.
Like you said, we'd have more Allen than Kamara, but he gets you the upside of those top guys without so much of the salary.
And that's really nice. Kyren Williams' salary, $8,400. It's come down, which is good because his role has also come down a bit. He had no targets for the second consecutive game this past week, which kind of makes sense because, like, if you've got Puka Nacua, throw the ball to Puka Nacua. And the Rams have done that to their credit. And the red zone role also declining a bit for Kyren. In the games with Puka being full, I can't remember the split I pulled. It's either with Puka full or in the games Puka has played recently. Kyren's red zone share is down to 40%. So he's not as locked in as he was. It's still a 51% red zone share for the full season. For Kyren, which is still good. I think he's like a filter in piece or game stacks. Not a priority for me, like overall in this league, because I prefer Bijan above him and Kamara below him. But I do like Kyren enough to include him in game stacks. Am I too low on him? Because I know I want to check, because I tend to be lower on him than others at times.
No, I mean, you get the yardage difference between, not that you just copy and paste yards per game.
Yeah.
But yardage potential with Kamara, and you mentioned the roughly 40% red zone split for Kyren with Puka back. That's where Kamara's been. Kamara's at home. Like, how many times are you clicking Kyren over Kamara? Now, you can play both together. That's a different question. But from the full slate standpoint, I don't know how you... Like, I think you're justifiably a bit lower on Kyren here. So I'm good with it.
Okay, let's talk about the pass catchers then. There are no pass catchers to discuss in the Saints other than Taysom Hill, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua. With Nacua, I agree with you. I'm not going to talk about Kupp. I don't need to, frankly. But like with Puka, $8,700. That's my only hang up with him, is because like if I get AJ Brown, no Devontae Smith, I'm taking AJ Brown over Puka. But I like want to make sure I get Puka in there because like it's within his range of outcomes still to outscore AJ Brown because he gets a ton of deep targets. He is obviously a very good football player. He's facing the Saints, who have no Marshawn Lattimore. They have no Paulson Adebo. The secondary is brutal. We just saw Jerry Jeudy light them up before their bye week. So, like, I think that I'm worried that I won't have enough Puka, but I want to actually make sure I get to him. And I think that's kind of an endorsement of, like, he has that FOMO factor in him where he can hurt me, I think, for not using him. Do you agree? How are you viewing Puka this week?
Yeah, he can hurt us for sure. The thing with it's not a matter of talent. Also, I don't want to disparage like Puka Nacua as a talent. Like AJ Brown, in a vacuum, sure. But what do we talk about with AJ Brown? If we assume his team throws the ball more than 25 times, sure. Like the Rams throw the ball and they throw the ball to Puka Nacua. He's got 3 games where he's played basically his usual role, and he's got a 34.6% target share in that split with 46% of the air yards. He gets downfield work. He gets red zone work. He's like a boosted up version of like Amon-Ra St. Brown in a sense.
Interesting.
Where like the targets are always there but like it's a bit better. Now he's not like the prototypical Jamar Chase house 250-yard touchdown player. So he's a little more like he needs the volume. If he doesn't get but like the total is high. We're talking over a third of the targets. If you look at, Puka sort of back full, he's got the yardage bonus in three games, just missed it by 2 yards in 1 game. I think he might be a little low on Puka. It's hard to like ask AJ Brown versus Puka I think like if I'm not thinking of game stacks, I'm probably more thinking of like a cash game more like format. I'm going Puka there
The
because I know
targets
that
are
the
more
targets
certain
are
for
good.
him. So I think that's a fair
Yeah.
take.
So I think the real thing is like, am I going to have like Lamar Hurts or am I not? And if I'm not, then I'll probably lean Puka's way a little bit more. But
Well, that's actually one of the things I wanted to mention is the idea of having Puka Nacua in a Lamar or Hurts lineup where like most of those will be tied to AJ Brown. Like you're not going to get a lot of combinations of Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts with Puka Nacua. And so like maybe you go with a Zay Flowers, Dallas Goedert situation in there with them and then have Puka filtered in there. I think that's pretty attractive. So I want to like, again, I'm talking about like making sure I get enough Puka to benefit if he does well. I want some of those to be in lineups where I've got Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts at quarterback, specifically because I think that combo of quarterback from that game with a receiver in the exact same range as AJ Brown will be a pretty unique combination.
So I agree. I think Nakua is great. I know we're not going to be as high on Cup, but if you look at these 3 games with Puka's snap rate basically being 75% or better, he's at 82 yards per game, 27% of the targets. We know he's got a red zone role. Like you said, it's fine, but I don't think we need. I don't want to like dismiss him and just not talk about him. He's like Amon-Ra St. Brown a bit, but I like.
He's like Amon-Ra St. Brown if Amon-Ra St. Brown were slower and not as good. Like I don't know, man. Like I can't do it.
Sure, but like once you get into the 9s for that archetype,
Correct.
Just no thanks.
I agree with that too. Okay, any final thoughts for you on this one?
No.
Cool. Let's talk about our third bookmaker game then. That is the Chargers at the Falcons. High total, tight spread here. Total 47.5. Chargers favored by 1.5. Seen some movement in favor of Atlanta recently. They were plus 110 to win earlier on. They are now down to plus 102. Like to see that because I got the Falcons money line in the back pocket. Likely no J.K. Dobbins here. Hard to tell who will benefit. So we could say some salary in this game overall, Brandon. How willing are you to stack up Chargers versus Falcons?
It's probably a 1 QB game.
Correct.
With Justin Herbert at 79. I think that's interesting, playing indoors. As far as like my favorite plays here, that's where things get a little more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I do like Ladd McConkey a good bit.
Yeah.
He's in a good spot. My buy low model for receivers, which you can find on FanDuel Research.
Oh, good plug.
Likes really all of the Chargers receivers, but specifically I'm going with Ladd.
Yeah.
For pretty obvious reasons here, but 4 straight games without a touchdown, gets downfield work, just leads in target share. And you're, again, injecting that into a game where they should have to throw the ball a bit more with Atlanta coming out of the bye, getting healthier. If we get Darnell Mooney full, like McConkey Mooney stacks, like I'm going to be probably, I'll say ideally, I'm living in that range because that means I can spend up at quarterback a bit, hopefully take a value running back, but get up to the higher salaried running backs. I'm okay with that. Yeah. So I like it as mini stacks. Again, it's a 1 QB game for me.
Yeah.
But like, is there anyone you really love here?
Well, Mooney has a hamstring injury, but they said he looks like he's good to go based on what Raheem Morris was saying today. So I think that he'll be good. And if we get a full by Friday and Darnell Mooney with not questionable, that's pretty fun. Like you said, a Herbert, McConkey, Mooney stack, then you can get to like a Saquon Barkley, Zay Flowers, or like a Derrick Henry, AJ Brown stack elsewhere. That's pretty hot. So I'm into that for sure. And I think that's why this game is so attractive to me, is because we do have lower salary guys who can actually move the needle for you. McConkey, you alluded to, the yardage upside is very much there. Past couple of games for him, 123 yards against the Bengals, 83 against the Ravens. He's getting some downfield work, 27% deep target share since Quentin Johnston returned, 21% overall. So not like an amazing share there. Part of that's because he was banged up in that Titans game, got banged up was banged up entering the Ravens game too. Didn't practice until I think Saturday for that game. So hopefully he's healthier this time around. If he is, like, he's been playing through injury the entire year. It's been really, really good. So I like him a lot. You mentioned Darnell Mooney. If we get a full by Friday on him, the target shares for Mooney in his full games have been fantastic. 24% target share overall, 46% deep target share with a 16% red zone share. Chargers defense is like good because Jesse Minter is a wizard, but like they're not like the most talented team by any means. And I think that like a Mooney type guy can do well against that kind of unit where it's not about the talent, it's more about like scheme and stuff like that. So I like Mooney a lot. And honestly, Drake London's salaries come down too. He's $7,300. And I'm not a big Drake London person typically. That's because his salary is always in the high 7,000s. At 73, it's a different discussion given the number of targets this guy gets. I still don't want to like bend over backwards to get him because I don't think he has like that earth scorching upside that you want, but I do like him overall. So I'm honestly pretty high on all three of these guys, and I don't feel that scared about it personally.
Yeah, I think it's a fine mini stack. Don't think it's anything beyond that. Don't think it's really phenomenal or can't miss. I prefer Mooney if he's healthy to Drake London just due to downfield work. But Atlanta kind of out of sight, out of mind, really struggled in that week 11 game before the bye. So could get something there. Where are you with, I always like Bijan more. I feel like, where are you with him? And like, let's talk potential Gus Edwards.
If we didn't have Kamara, I feel like Bijan would be in the discussion for like that RB, like a top 3 running back at worst, I think, because salary's 85. That's not good or not bad. I mean, sorry. That's not bad at all. I don't mind that salary. Yardage has been pretty good recently. Bijan, 103.3 yards from scrimmage per game. That's not bad for 85. And it's been a little bit better recently too. And I think you can run on this Chargers defense, as we saw Derrick Henry and Justice Hill do on Monday. So I know like their overall rankings are pretty good, but like, again, I think it's more scheme related than like talent related. So I'm more willing to bet against that. So I think I like Bijan quite a bit this week. I wouldn't want to use him like over Kamara, but like in a lineup with Kamara, that's pretty fun. So I think I'm pretty high on him this week.
So, I mean, I can't really talk you out of that. I think it's probably asking a bit much to go Bijan, Kamara, and like Lamar. Maybe not.
If we get Allen, it's probably easier.
Yes, for sure. So I like it. It'll probably be a question of not value at quarterback, but lower salary quarterbacks we can tolerate. It might just be Herbert, which he's not that low salaried.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, you mentioned the Chargers backfield. The reason I'm not going to be there on Gus Edwards is because Haskins outsnapped him. Hassan Haskins outsnapped him on Monday night. They were in a negative game script, and Haskins probably the better pass catching back, but he also has gotten goal line work even when Gus Edwards has been healthy. But I can't use Haskins because like they still gave Edwards the majority of like the early down work. So I think what we'll see here is a 3-way split where Haskins mixes in, Kamani Vidal mixes in, especially for passing game work. Edwards gets early down work, and I don't think anybody in that 3-headed monster can really kill me for not using them. So that's why I'm probably lower here despite the low salaries. How about you?
I agree.
That it?
Yeah, I don't need to spend more time on talking about why I don't like the backs here.
Oh boy, I did not realize Kyle Pitts' salary was $5,400.
Sure is.
Why are they doing this? Is this an act of aggression by FanDuel to force us to consider Kyle Pitts? Should we sue? Can we sue? Is that okay? I don't know. Anyway, $54 for Kyle Pitts. It is what it is. I will use that at times. How about you?
I guess he's basically had a lot of like busted plays.
Yes.
They gave, I know, like, I guess that's all I can say.
Fair enough. I can't blame you for that one. Will Dissly's salary is 52. I also think that he's like fine at that number, frankly, because like the workload for Dissly has been pretty good. If you look at him since Quentin Johnston returned, Dissly right now has a 17% target share with 25% in the red zone. Again, that's not terrible. So I think that he works as well. So Pitts is fine. Disley fine. If I give you a mini stack in this game, is it going to be McConkey Mooney or do you want Bijan in there?
Realistically, McConkey Mooney.
Okay. I think that's where I'd lean as well, just because like that's two mid-range guys with juice, and I think that's tough to turn down for sure. Let's dig in now to our trends discussion for week number 13. We're going to start things off by talking about, you mentioned there are 4 upside quarterbacks on this slate, and we talked about Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, one of those Jaden Daniels. Other one, though, is Josh Allen, and Josh Allen is facing 49ers defense that got obliterated this past week by the Green Bay Packers. So you're going to talk about the Niners defense and what that should mean as we look at the Bills side of things for this week.
Yep, just keeping it short and sweet here because it's a matter of, can we play Josh Allen? Can we trust it? So for the season, the 49ers are 5th in number fire's adjusted pass defense, but 23rd against the rush. They've had some key absences of late, most notably Nick Bosa. Bosa exited early in week 11, missed week 12. They let up 38 points to the Packers on the road without Bosa, 20 to the Seahawks when he left early, and 14 of those came in the second half. They let up 20 to the Bucks in week 10 without Travarius Ward, but with Bosa. It's not exactly like the most, it's like the 49ers that we used to know exactly. Over the last 3 weeks, the 49ers are just 15th in overall adjusted defense by number fire's metrics. Again, kind of just like picked apart. Last week, Josh Jacobs, 3 touchdowns, but Jordan Love was efficient. They're now facing Josh Allen, who's got just a 2.5% sack rate, which is sick, and one of the best pressure to sack rates in the league. If they can't get pressure on Allen, we could see a lot of fun here. Fred Warner's still good to go, so like we have to account for that, but you're much more in tune with defenses than I am. I'm not seeing enough here to like get me off of Josh Allen. The bigger question is James Cook's salary is $7,800. I have problems with his workload. Don't really love the pass catchers' workloads here. So how are you balancing? Well, first of all, how are you valuing the 49ers defense at this point whenever you build out your model? And then from there, is there enough here to put Allen in that conversation with the top 4, or is he at the bottom of that tier for you?
I would still prefer Hurts and Lamar by a pretty good bit. So I think for me, he'd be in the Herbert tier, which is fine. That's still solid. That's still top 4 for me. But I'd probably rank him above Jaden Daniels, personally.
I think so too. Yeah, this was enough for me to be like, you know what? Jaden Daniels, he can and does run. He has some, he's really efficient as a passer, but he kind of doesn't have as much passing upside as you might want. He has a lot of multiple Hail Marys effectively, so it's fine. Yeah. His offense isn't as healthy. He's not going to have so I think this is enough for me to go with Allen. We're talking about Hurts being like a pivot. I think Allen's a pivot.
Sure.
But I don't know if there's enough else to stack with him.
Yeah. It does help that Keon Coleman could be back. Actually, no, it doesn't. I lied. That doesn't help. That actually spreads things out a bit more. But salaries for the pass catchers, I don't think Khalil Shakir has upside. So I don't want to use him 62. Just like the yardage, probably not going to be there more often than not. Like he's kind of like a Keenan Allen type, I guess, in that regard. So not really high there. Cooper's salary 61. He had the bye to get that wrist healthier and hopefully get more integrated in the offense, because like he still wasn't really there in that Chiefs game as far as like a role. Keon Coleman 59. If you have an Allen lineup, would you just run with no stack? How would you feel about that?
I think I'd just probably ignore it and hopefully build upside into the lineup elsewhere and hope that Josh Allen runs for 2 touchdowns.
Which he could. He definitely could. I think that's very much a possibility for him. Now, you mentioned James Cook. Salary for him is $7,800. His role is just weird, frankly. And like his yardage upside is not, well, the yardage upside is there, but like the yardage like baseline is brutal, frankly. He is at 78 yards from scrimmage per game in the games he has played this year. For some context, the guys around him, Aaron Jones right beneath him, he's at 103, so well clear of him. James Conner, including last week's debacle, is at 90 yards per game. Chuba Hubbard is at 91 if you include the full season sample, including when he was kind of dusty early on in the year. Chase Brown is Chase Brown. Bucky, Irving, since Rachaad White returned, is at 87. So like that's a 10-yard gap, and that does not filter. That's not just last week. Like that's the whole time. So I've typically been higher on James Cook than you. I don't know if that's going to stick, frankly. And it bums me out because he's really fun to watch. I just like the role is just not as good as it should be.
Yeah, it's hard to build around him. I think maybe Allen with some 49ers is appealing, but it's not going to be my primary. It's going to be just something I do to get a share here and there of Josh Allen.
Would you need like 5 lineups to get there, or how many?
I need more than that because there's so many different ways to stack Baltimore and Philly. So
that's fair. I think that's probably where I'm settling in here as well. So it's not like we're on the same page. Where we like Josh Allen. We do like what he brings to the table. Okay with like getting to him, but target shares of the actual like dudes in the offense are middling, I guess. So kind of a bummer on that one. Let's go to our second trend, which is talking about the aforementioned Bucky Irving, because the Bucks backfield has enticed me quite a bit recently. Even though it's a split backfield, it has upside due to how efficient they are. Again, I've been calling them like kind of like a Diet Coke version of the Lions in a lot of ways, because like it's a good offense. The players within it are talented, and now Bucky Irving might be morphing into Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe. Snap rate was 55% last week, which is the highest it's been since the game that Rachaad White missed. It was in the 60s at times, but then there was a blowout there, so it went down to 55%. He had 151 yards from scrimmage in that game. If he has truly separated, he'll be an elite play at $7,200. But I do think he's at least viable, even if the White... If like he's like the 1A and White's the 1B, which I think is probably the most likely scenario here. But like in the 5 games since Rachaad White returned, Bucky Irving's averaging 86.6 yards from scrimmage per game. That's on 10 carries and 4.4 targets per game. Not as good of a play as Chase Brown at 73, but Brown is in a tough matchup. Irving's in an elite one with the Panthers, who are 31st against the run. And again, it is possible. It is a non-zero chance that he is becoming a bigger part of this offense because he's talented. He's in a good offense. And again, if you gave me Jahmyr Gibbs for $7,200, I'm taking that against the Panthers all day. So I think this is an aggressive comp, and it's mildly tongue-in-cheek, but it's also kind of not. So do you see enough here to target Irving at 72, or is that number too high for you?
I like it. We've gone kind of back and forth on Slack. It's mostly I'm just ribbing you and kind of pointing out any potential negatives. I think he's a good, like when you watch him, you know he's a good football player. I'm not like a film guy. I don't do that. I can do it for basketball, but not really specifically football. But when you see a good running back, it's easy to figure out if they're good and have juice. He's good. You're not necessarily paying top dollar, like you said. The Gibbs comp, I kind of get it. It's similar enough, but you're getting such a salary discount here. The offense is efficient. I mean, 3rd highest implied team total on the board. And like you said, there's a non-zero chance that he's just starting the takeover. Like we played a lot of Rachaad White last year. It was less to do with him and more to do with his role. I don't think he was meant to be like a long-term featured back.
And like he's good at his one thing, and his one thing is catching the ball. He's really good at that. So like kudos to him. But Bucky can do that too, and he's a better runner.
So would you just play him in a one-off scenario? Do you need any sort of bring back or pushback here?
Not really.
I don't think I do either.
Just because like I don't mind the Panthers offense. Like Bryce Young played pretty well, I thought, last week, and that's not a contrarian opinion. Like people agree with me that like he looked pretty good. The problem is I don't know who I'd bring it back with other than Chuba, and even like Chuba, I prefer Bucky, I prefer Chase Brown, rather get to Aaron Jones, stuff like that. So I don't know if I'll get to Chuba. And then like the pass catchers, like David Moore led them in targets last week.
He had a sick role.
He did. But I don't want to use David Moore. And Xavier Legette's salary, I like Xavier Legette talent-wise, but his salary is too high. So I think I would just go Bucky by himself and kind of hope it hits basically at that point.
Yeah, I like Irving enough. I'll say this, where we'll talk running backs. We'll do the salary scroll.
Yeah.
If I were to play something like Aaron Jones, Chase Brown, and Bucky Irving together,
pretty hot.
Like, I'm fine with that. I think there's enough there for all those guys. We'll talk Pollard without Spears versus Bucky. I think that's probably Pollard there.
Yeah. Comfortably Pollard,
But like, it's close enough.
Yeah, totally.
Or not. It's close enough with Bucky where he can be in that player pool. So I'm just publicly admitting that I've kind of been ribbing you about
Not
Bucky.
Publicly, though. That was all behind the scenes. They don't have to know that.
No. Publicly, I'm admitting.
Oh, okay.
Like, you were right here. And
I was right for now. I can still be wrong. Give it time. I'm never right. I am just
not wrong
later sometimes. Yeah, exactly. Never right, just wrong later is the way we'll go with there. But I do think he's in play this week. If we get Pollard with no Spears, it goes down a bit, but like I'd still try to get him in there because like there's a chance he's just like the dude, which would be a lot of fun. Weather for this week will change as the week goes along, but did want to highlight at least a couple games with some high winds right now. Washington and Tennessee, 11-mile-per-hour winds there, so check back on that one. Got a 10 for Buffalo and San Francisco. Josh Allen plays in like monsoons and is fine, so like I don't care as much about it for him. That's not going to bother me right there, but check back on wind speeds for others. It is 9 in Baltimore for the Ravens and Eagles, but I still have that total at a high number, so I'm not going to. That's accounting for the wind, so I'm not going to worry too much about that one either. So let's go now, position by position, to break down our top plays on FanDuel for this week. And again, disclaimer here: we're recording Wednesday, so check back on injuries. We're not accounting for any injury news that comes out after Wednesday afternoon. Brandon, let's start things off at quarterback. We talked a lot about this position, and I feel like the player pool this week can be tighter than what it's been past couple weeks. And I feel pretty good about that. And by that, I mean, if you told me you're only going to use Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, I'll feel pretty good about that. And like, I think even Allen is like, I'd like to get there, but like, I'm not totally out on the idea of just trimming it to 3 and rocking with those guys in Lamar, Hurts, and Herbert. How are you feeling about quarterback right now?
Those are my 3 as well.
Okay.
It's kind of a hard 3 to argue against. I think the real question is how high on Herbert are we, to the point of like any savings is helpful always when you're in a salary cap format. Let's say you're building 10 lineups and those are your 3 quarterbacks. What's your distribution?
Well, it depends a bit on Braylon Allen, because like if I can get to him, then I can have less Herbert.
Yep. That's true.
But ideally, I'd like it to be like 6 Lamar, 3 Hurts, and 1 Herbert. So it's a pretty heavy slant towards the two studs.
I think that answers the question then.
Yeah.
Where he's in our top 3.
Yeah.
He's our QB3.
But he's not in that top.
He's going to be the first place I go below Lamar. I feel a lot better about Herbert in this game environment. We talked Buccaneers running backs. Baker could be really efficient and torch the Panthers, but probably not there. Burrow against the Steelers. Again, I'm not going to talk anyone out of these guys, but for me personally, I'm bumping over Purdy, who's not 100%, even if he's full by Friday with no designation. Just not really going to believe that. CJ Stroud, they got at some point, you say this every now and then, you got to show me something. Like, I think he's phenomenal, but at a certain point, you got to show me something.
Yeah. He had a good matchup at home last week and didn't do a ton. And again, it's not all his fault. He's had some bad plays, but if it were indoors, I'd go back to it, but it's not. So I'm not going to.
So then I get to Herbert. He's the first guy.
Yep.
I think there are some questions here with Anthony Richardson, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's close to my never again list after last week. He's been on my never again list numerous times.
Correct.
Geno revenge.
Correct.
But probably not going to go there. Just don't really see it many other places. If I'm going with I'm not going to do this, but if I'm going with a more traditional pocket passer, I'm going to go Sam Darnold.
So he's grading out well in projections, and I
Yeah.
think he's probably going to catch some roster rate as a result of that.
Yeah.
Personally, I can't do it.
I'm not going to, but like Darnold or Stafford or Carr for you.
Stafford. Pretty comfortably Stafford, I think, actually.
As soon as I said Darnold and you were mousing over Stafford, I was like, I don't know, man. Stafford, he's got, not really considering playing a punch of cup, but like he's got 2 pass catchers who can move the ball.
That game is a high total and a tight spread, which is what we want.
So
like my model, it is very hard within my totals model to have a high total and a tight spread because those two things interplay. And basically what you're saying is both these teams are going to score a lot of points. That's a really hard thing to say in an NFL game. It's saying that right now, and I want to take that signal. So I think if I'm looking at a quarterback 5, even above like Jaden Daniels, I think it's Stafford actually.
Yeah. I so much prefer Herbert due to the rushing potential.
Yeah. Totally.
So if we don't get Braylon Allen, we're not really high on Gus Edwards specifically. Don't want to play like McNichols.
Right.
I'm still going Herbert comfortably over everyone else. But yeah, I think Stafford over Darnold I'm on board with. Stafford's also not going to get benched.
No. You're not wrong. He's also not going to probably turn the ball over 6 times in the red zone. So that's
most likely not. Yeah.
I think it's because I like grew up a Jets fan and I'm from Minnesota that I'm like, I can't use Sam Darnold. Like there's a lot of scar tissue there. But just that's in play. So loves Lamar and Hurts, or is it Lamar and Herbert, or does it matter? Is it just those 3?
I think it's those 3, and then you're getting sort of. I think you can play so much Hurts and Lamar different ways. You can play Herbert. I don't know. I think Allen's 4, Stafford 5.
I think so too. I think we're in the same place.
I'm good with that.
All right, we haven't talked a lot about the highest salary backs. We alluded to Saquon. We talked about Henry. We talked about McCaffrey a bit. But of this big four, Joe Mixon, 95, Saquon, 92, Derrick Henry, 9,000, McCaffrey, 88. Let's assume that Purdy's actually good to go. Of those 4, who do you use the biggest priority?
Saquon.
By a mile, correct?
By a decent amount.
Yeah.
It's not just reacting to what he did.
Right.
He was already, like, the scrimmage yards are already there. I like Mixon.
Sure.
He's got a great red zone role. I think there's a little bit of a buy low.
Sure.
Like off of a dud while still having the highest salary, you kind of get some of that like
flop lag.
Yeah. Cool term. Did you come up with that?
Yeah. Totally.
So I don't want to like ignore Mixon. His role was still there, just didn't produce in a tough on paper matchup. I don't know. But if I'm spending salary in that offense, I might go Nico.
Oh yeah, totally.
So
I 100% agree with you.
Based on positional scare or opportunity cost, I have other running backs who I think can match Mixon. Nico might just be, he's a freak. So Freako.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm going Saquon.
Yeah, me too.
I'd still probably put Mixon over Henry.
Interesting. Okay.
But it's very
You're
close.
probably not wrong. But yeah.
And then I'd go McCaffrey. Like McCaffrey we were warming up to be like the guy last week.
Yeah.
His role was good.
Yeah.
You can't really account for like the yardage and efficiency because he didn't have Brock Purdy, but
right.
I don't know. I mean, you mentioned, would you say McCaffrey hasn't hit his top speed yet?
Yeah. Well, he hasn't hit his top speed this year has not matched his lowest top speed from a game last year. So you look at his top speed in every game, it's been lower than any of his top speeds in any game last year.
Okay. That doesn't sound good.
No, it does not.
So
part of it's because he hasn't gotten in the open field. Like those speed numbers are dependent on like getting the open field, and he hasn't done that yet. But maybe he's not getting the open field because he's, not what he was.
Yeah,
I hope he is because I love Christian McCaffrey. But I think I agree.
He's like the Josh Allen of running backs this week, where I'd like to get there. He's like the fourth guy.
Yeah.
But
I like that comp. Let's start in the 8,000 range at running back then. Probably no Brees. But like we got Bijan Robinson, Kyron Williams, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker we have not discussed yet. I'm just probably not going to get there again.
Same.
Because Kamara again is in the RB1 discussion, and I really do like Bijan this week because that game is really good and stuff like that. So any deviations for you from what we talked about with those guys so far?
Kamara, Bijan. Would you go Kyron over Walker?
I would
too.
Pretty easily. Yeah.
Yep. Same.
I agree with that too. We talked about Jonathan Taylor before at 79. I don't think I'm going to get there with so many good running backs this week. Like I think that it was good to ask because like his roles, like he's playing every snap. So maybe it's dumb of me not to get there, but like, I don't know, man.
It's one of those, like, you're not going to talk anyone out of.
Yeah.
If I see someone like, I played Jonathan Taylor in a tournament and he scored 28. I'm like, oh, that was smart.
Yeah. Good play. Yeah.
I'm not going to play my RB8 very often.
Right.
So like, yeah,
I agree.
Taylor or Cook?
Taylor. Comfortably
Yep.
Taylor.
Yep.
Aaron Jones, 77. We have not discussed him a lot, so let's do that right now. Taking on the Arizona Cardinals, Arizona 27th against the rush so far this year based on number fire schedule adjusted metrics. Jones, the role perked back up last week, which I thought was super encouraging. He is at 103 yards scrimmage per game, 44% red zone share. That is a high total. Spread is tight enough. If I'm going to get exposure to the Vikings, it's going to be via Aaron Jones, not Sam Darnold. We talked about a lot of backs, though. So where does Jones settle in? Let's loop in Chase Brown here. We'll talk about him more in depth in a second. But we got Kamara, Chase Brown. We got the high salary guys. Is Aaron Jones like a top 5 running back for you this week?
Yeah. I think he has to be.
Sure.
79% snap rate last week, so that came back up. I think he had 10 red zone opportunities last week. Pretty high implied team total, but not as high as the Bengals. I mean, it's close, but so like not in the same tier as Alvin Kamara. Probably in the same tier though as Brown.
I put him a tier below Brown just because Brown's role is sick. I know the matchup is tough, but
yeah, I guess it's more wishful thinking that Jones keeps this role.
Yeah.
And there's no indication that Brown would not have his role. So you're right.
I need James Conner at 76.
Oh, brother.
It's a no dog.
I'm going to say no.
Cool. Chuba Hubbard, 74. Fine with it, but probably not going to use him. I think he's kind of similar to Jonathan Taylor, I guess, where it's like, yeah, he's fine. But like, he's a really good football player. His role is pretty good. It's a good matchup, but like,
mega snap rate, like 15% target share last week, 10 red zone opportunities. Should probably be high. Hubbard or Connor?
Hubbard.
Yep.
That's more a reflection of Connor though than Hubbard for me.
That's fair. Hubbard or Bucky?
I want to buy in the Bucs offense, and there's a chance he gets a bigger role, so give me Bucky.
It's close, but I'd probably go
higher
Hubbard
median
there.
expectation for Hubbard, higher ceiling for Bucky. Does that make sense?
It does.
Is that a cop out?
No, because it's accurate. You can't just.
Okay, cool.
It's not as simple as one or the other. It's if you're playing a cash game against like a friend or like a
coworker, hypothetically.
What's that?
As a coworker, again, playing a head-to-head against a coworker.
You never know.
Yeah, you
never know.
Never know. Let's talk about Chase Brown. $7,300. We talked about him a bit. I took Aaron Jones first, so I'll let you talk about Brown first. I don't want to steal all the fun guys to discuss.
No, Chase Brown's your guy. You talk about him if you want.
Cool. So in the games with no Zach Moss, I did not hesitate there. In the games without Zach Moss, Brown is at 20.7 carries per game, 3.3 targets per game, and 131 yards from scrimmage per game, 41% red zone share. I was talking before about Kamara having 27 points and no touchdowns. In the game before their bye week, Brown had 16.8 points with no touchdowns. That's like chef's kiss from a running back. That's amazing. I love that. He also had, if you take out the touchdown 2 games before that, he had 21 points. He's had at least 11 points with no touchdowns. If you take out the touchdowns in all 3 games with no Zach Moss, I know it's a tough matchup and that matters, but like, convince me he should not be a top 2 running back this week alongside Kamara.
I won't do it.
Good. Proud of you. You didn't take the bait.
Pittsburgh also lets up some targets to running backs. They're about league average. Brown in that 3-game split, 17% target share, 24% target per route rate, which is between good and elite. So you'll take that.
Yep, you will. And he also faced the Ravens, who are the 2nd ranked rush defense, 17.9 FanDuel points there. Yardage is okay at 94 yards, but like he was in a tough matchup there and he still played pretty well. Steelers are 1 spot below the Ravens. So and that was on the road, whereas this one's at home. So I think there are enough factors pointing to him being a solid option there. Talked about Bucky Irving quite a bit before, so we don't need to touch on him again. But let's have the Pollard discussion now. Let's say there's no Tyjae Spears. I would still put him below Chase Brown personally. I'd put him below Kamara, but I think the Pollard to be in the RB3 discussion. Is that fair?
I'd go Pollard over Irving.
Yeah.
There's really nobody else.
Pollard over Aaron Jones, right?
Pollard over Aaron Jones. I mean, we're talking 90+% snap rate and a good football player.
Yeah.
Like plus 700 in savings. I'm just going to take that. So
yeah,
Pollard without Spears, I'll say RB3, notwithstanding like the Braylon Allen conversation. But I think the real question is going to be like, if we get Braylon Allen and you can pick one of these guys, I guess I'd go Chase Brown. Because like if you want to get to like a Saquon.
Yeah.
But Pollard's, I wish I trusted myself a little bit more last week with him, but we saw this. So, but if Spears plays, it's probably not going to get there.
Yep. I agree with that too. McNichols 67. If there's no Brian Robinson, I think he would be below Bucky for me for trying to like tier things out. Below Chase Brown, obviously, below Aaron Jones. So like I might not get there, but I think I'd like to have a bit just because like, again, I want exposure to backs tied to running quarterbacks. The Tennessee matchup is a big part of why I'm not higher on him, frankly. But like, I think that's kind of where I'd settle in is below those guys.
Where would his salary need to be for you to have him like RB3 and above?
61?
Yeah, I was thinking like 6,000, frankly. Sure. So that's a pretty big deviation, but it'd be a lot easier if I liked the other side more. There's really, I mean, we can talk with Nick Westbrook and Keeney finally. I'm not going to really, but
I took notes on Calvin Ridley for once, just so you know. I did.
And like his salary is 68, so there's like a mini stack there, but there's only a certain amount of situations where I would want to go out of my way to play McNichols at this point. So
yeah, I agree. Other backs in the 6,000 range, I see nothing, frankly. Nothing I want to use. I'm cool skipping over everyone not named Braylon Allen down to 53 Braylon Allen, unless we get like other value to pop up elsewhere. Anyone in the other outside of McNichols in the 6,000 range or the 5,000 range you want to discuss?
Nope.
Cool. So just Braylon Allen, and again, he'd be like borderline 100% guy if there's no Breece Hall on Sunday for that one. So loves at running back. I'm going to go Kamara, Chase Brown as like the locked in guys, regardless of health. If there's no Spears, Pollard is number 3 as far as the loves. If there's no Breece, then Braylon Allen's in there. And let's say both Breece Hall and both Breece Hall and Tyjae Spears play. It's a fight between Aaron Jones and Bucky Irving to be third love for me at that point.
It's a lot of conditionals, but we have to. I'm very close to you, but I do think I would put Chuba Hubbard in that conversation of like top 5, top 4.
Okay.
It's just a matter of like, he's playing.
I'm cool with that. That's fine. Like, yeah.
I should throw out there that I want to get to Saquon, but Chuba Hubbard,
good football player.
He's good. Yeah,
he is. I'm receptive to that. I won't put him there, but I understand your rationale. Moving over to wide receiver, Ja'Marr Chase 93 makes sense. Like tough matchup. It makes sense. Like he can do some sicko stuff. So I get it. Ja'Marr Chase or Nico Collins or Justin Jefferson for you, just above the AJ Brown tier.
It's going to be silly to say anyone other than Ja'Marr Chase, who just flamethrowed the slate 2 weeks ago, or just the weekend. But Nico for me, he's so good. He's got 2 called back touchdowns already. I think
one was a 77-yarder and the other one was I can't remember.
It's like 40. It was like the 40 to 50 range.
Yeah,
but in 2 games since he's returned, he's at a 25% target share, which is kind of low for him, honestly.
Yeah,
35% of the air yards. Good matchup. Houston, they got to turn stuff around, and it's going to come because Nico Collins is getting 30% of the targets. So I'm going Nico here. As much as it is weird to say, it's not Ja'Marr Chase and Justin Jefferson, like 2 superstar
I don't consider
names.
Jefferson in that tier right now, personally.
I don't either.
He's had double-digit targets once this year.
You asked me, like, you thought it was just inevitable for Ja'Marr Chase's target share to go up.
Yeah.
Why don't you feel that way about Justin Jefferson? Sorry for airing that out, but like,
no, I asked it for a reason.
I don't trust the quarterback to like find him.
The second you said that, I was like, you're right. That's exactly what it is.
Jordan Addison's a good football player. He's involved. He gets downfield work. TJ Hawkinson's getting ramped up. Like, he's got more competition than ever, and he's got like worse quarterback play than, I don't want to say ever, because he's played with some not great quarterbacks, but yeah, he still has that ceiling. But you put him up against even Ja'Marr in a tougher matchup, Nico against the Jaguars, AJ Brown, Puka. Like, I'm sorry, I know he's as talented or just better than those guys as from an on-field perspective, but I'm ranking him above only Cooper Kupp among the names I see here this week.
Again, that says more about Kupp than it does about him. I agree with that too. I might go Chase over Nico, but it's a tough call. So just because the offense is more functional.
That's very true.
I agree with the sentiment. AJ Brown, 88, Puka Nacua, 87. We haven't talked about Mike Evans, 83. I'm not going to bring up Garrett Wilson, frankly, at 8,000. But like AJ Brown and Puka Nacua are both like, yes, I would love to get there kind of guys. Is that the right way to phrase them?
Yep. So I like Nico and Ja'Marr a good amount, but it's more likely that I get to Brown or Nacua, frankly, just due to the savings. And I'm okay with that.
Who do you think is like the preferred guy for you between Brown and Nacua? Is it Nacua in a cash game because the target volume is so good? Is it also Nacua in a tournament? I guess what's your view of those guys based on format?
It's a hard one to answer. It's going to depend on the lineup and the contest, but Puka in a lot of instances, Brown specifically when I'm playing Eagles, Ravens, stacks. So I'll probably end up with roughly equal exposure to them.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not saying you're downplaying Puka, but he's got like everything in his favor. So
he's also he deserves helps. Yeah.
I think he deserves a lot of love. And if I'm building one lineup and I don't like with Justin Herbert, might lean Puka.
I'm okay with that. You're talking me more into him, so I think that's totally fair.
It literally comes down to, do you think the Eagles decide to throw the ball enough for Brown? Like, Brown can do it on 6-7 targets, sure,
and they could do that because the matchup dictates that teams throw more against them. So like it could happen, which is why part of why I'm up there. But I think you're talking me into Puka pretty easily.
That's the question you have to ask yourself.
Yeah.
And I just feel like there's no real issues with Puka.
Right.
Brown could walk away from this game with 6 targets and 2 touchdowns, sure, but like,
6 targets, 140 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Sure.
The AJ Brown stat line. Let's scroll down to the 7,000 range because we haven't really talked a lot about this range so far, but it's got some names. Terry McLaurin, 79, DK Metcalf, 78, Jackson Smith and Jigba, 77, T. Higgins, 76, George Pickens, 74, Drake London, 73. Then we got Debo, 72, Zay, 71. Good names in this range. Anyone to you a priority in this tier, though, the 7,000 range?
Not like, I think you summed it up well. A lot of names, but if I'm looking at a blank lineup like you are, I don't know if any of these names are all right. Plug in player X and go from there. Now, as I think about it more, the question of like specifically Jamar Chase versus Nico, maybe I need to factor in that I can play George Pickens in a bring back.
Sure.
So again, it kind of depends, but Pickens' role has been really good with Russell Wilson under center. He's a very good football player. I know there's like the Steelers clearly want to bounce back after what happened to them. They're starting to kind of, I don't want to say like the wheels are falling off, but this game's going to matter. There's no way they come out of this mini bye after playing Thursday without getting Pickens involved. So I think he's really, really enticing. In 5 games with Russ, he's got a 30% target share and almost 120 air yards per game with 83 actual yards per game.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say he's like my priority because like Zay's here, but
not considering game stacks, I probably prefer Pickens though.
I kind of think like, you know, Zay and AJ Brown, super easy. If I'm not stacking that game, Pickens with Puka also sounds kind of nice to get guaranteed sort of 30% target shares. So
I think that's totally fair. Pickens has a 47% deep target share with Russ and 38% in the red zone. So like sicko shares in every single category. So of the 7,000 range, if I'm not considering stacks, I think he's my wide receiver 1.
Yep. Okay. That's nice because I didn't know if you were going to join me there.
Nope. High total, good matchup for him. So I think that he's pretty fun. And honestly, like I talked about Drake London before, and like, I'm growing more receptive to him, but like, can I really use him when Pickens is right there? And Pickens has like the better yardage upside. And like, I guess London's red zone share is awesome. So like
it is
85 yards or 2 touchdowns. He could give me like 3 touchdowns hypothetically. So
sure.
Yeah, I'm talking myself back into London, but like Pickens is above him. No, Pickens above him.
Okay.
But it's less of a gap than I initially thought.
Yeah. What about if you go up to T?
Yeah.
I know we gave T props over Chamomile and Mrs. T, but where are you with T versus? So we said Pickens is our one here. Higgins, London, Debo, Zay.
Zay is number 1.
I agree.
T. So the issue with T is that like I have an issue here, like because of I don't like to overplay wide receiver cornerback matchups, but like there's some like body types where I don't want to use guys. Like there's a reason the Mike Evans, Marshawn Lattimore thing was always a death match is because like they're both like big dudes. T. Higgins and Joey Porter's son. Like that's a physicality, like again, death match. And I think that's going to lower me on T. Kind of hope he underperforms so I can hop back on at a lower salary, like in the future. Not saying I'll have no T, but like he's below Pickens, a full tier below Pickens for me for like the first time ever. Cause like T's role is amazing. Just the matchup scares me.
I agree, but I'm not against Pickens T stacks. Well.
Yeah. I think that they're fine too. But Zay's 2 for me in this range. And then T might be 3rd, I guess. I don't know.
I think T over London.
Yeah. I'll probably have more London because of game stacks, I guess, but like
that's kind of
Okay. 6,000 range at receiver. We've not talked about Calvin Ridley yet. He is at $6,800.
Please talk to me about Calvin Ridley.
Okay. Because I actually took notes on him for the first time in a decade. But if you look at him since the nuke trade, 31% target share, 56% of the deep targets, and 31% in the red zone. He can still have like these bust games because Will Levis is a wild man and might just airball every single target to him, but he also can have upside because like he's getting deep balls, and Levis looks a little bit better than he did before the bench injury, Freudian slip. So I think that he's good enough to be in play at 68. Am I going to prioritize him? No, but like if I have 68 left, am I going to reconfigure my line to get off him? Probably not with that either. So I do like him enough to use him. How about you?
Yeah. Glad you came around. Like, not that, wow, look at this. How are you not there? Like, yeah, it's up and down, but he's got the building blocks, to use a term you like to give, to have big games. I think he's talented enough. And in the event you're playing Jaden Daniels, I feel like you just have to be receptive to Ridley.
Yeah.
In 3 games with Levis back, he's at a 27% target share, over half the air yards. It's really been kind of a 2 or 3 man offense in a way, with Nick Westbrook Akine also getting some good work. But I won't make you talk about him. But Ridley, I think, does stand out to me in this range, like the upper 6s.
Yep, I agree with that. Brian Thomas Jr., if like Trevor Lawrence weren't hurt, like if his shoulder were healthy, because I think he's going to play. It sounds like he'll play. But like the injury just kind of bugged me. So couldn't get there, especially when there's Darnell Mooney at 65, Tank Dell 64, who I'm fine with, Addison 63, Ladd 63, and then Juwan if we get Purdy at 61. I don't mind BTJ. I think I prefer all those guys over him. How are you viewing the rest of the 6,000 range?
I agree, and I think I'm going to be here a lot.
Yeah.
I think my main lineups are going to probably have 3 names here.
Okay.
So that I can play those 7K running backs and up.
Yeah.
Play Lamar. You know, if I'm down here, of course, Mooney and Ladd gets me on like a Herbert stack. So
yeah.
I think Tank Dell's probably, he's an eternal buy low candidate for various reasons, but a lot of downfield work still for Tank. Yeah. I think he's getting better.
I agree.
So at a certain point, you got to show it to me, but the salary's down.
Yep.
To the point where I can be receptive to this. Because frankly, you can maybe prefer like a Ladd here, but there's not that much of a difference necessarily.
Right.
And eventually CJ Stroud's going to have a big game.
He is. Yes.
Could be this week.
Could.
In this matchup. So he stands out, but where are you with like a Jordan Addison? Does he do anything for you? Because he's coming alive.
Yeah. I'm still skeptical of him because like it was like a 1-game sample. If you look at the games with Hawkinson back, 20.5% target share, 26% deep, and then 21% in the red zone. Those are just fine shares, but frankly, they're not that different than Ladd either. So I should be higher in him than I am, but like it's really hard to get enthused because again, I'd rather have exposure to Justin Herbert than Sam Darnold. I think that's kind of like and it's a better game too. So similar target shares, but better environment for Ladd, which is why I go there. Better environment for Mooney as well. Better deep target share for Mooney too. So I just can't rank him above those guys, I guess. I'm receptive to it, but like can't rank him above him.
Yeah, his routes shot up last week, but we've kind of seen that go up and down a little bit. Hawkinson's more involved. So I'm probably not there, but there's clearly upside.
Yeah.
But there's also nothing to sort of separate him. I'd feel better with like Ladd, whose single game target shares are consistently great.
Yep.
So
I agree with that too. Okay. So in the 6,000 range, Ladd or Mooney number 1 for you?
Ladd.
If Mooney's full by Friday, I should say.
Mooney.
If he's full by Friday and off the injury report, yes.
He's got a bigger ceiling.
He does. I agree with that too. Okay. Moving down to the 5,000 range at receiver, I'd have to check. Did I have notes on anybody? I had notes on one guy down here. I don't want to talk about it though. So
Noah
anybody
Brown?
In the what?
Was it Noah Brown?
I can't confirm or deny. Anybody in the 5,000 range stand out to you?
I mean, if we're just sort of doing due diligence, we talked about Rashad Bateman a little bit. as part of a game stack, you could do worse than. I'd rather stack Rashad Bateman and Lamar than just play a one-off of like an Alec Pierce who could see more work without Josh Downs. I'm assuming this is Noah Brown, though, who you're discussing.
Maybe.
Because he's on my list as a maybe as well.
All right. You talk to me about Noah Brown then.
Well, we've been there for a while.
I know.
So this probably isn't going to like shock anyone, but his role like keeps getting better and expanding a bit.
It does.
He's got, so basically he came back 3 games with like an expanded role. Zach Ertz actually leads the team in target share in that split.
Cliff, buddy, what are we doing? I think that's part of why I'm like embarrassed that he's on my list, because I'm like, this shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a bad football player, but like Terry McLaurin's a lot better than him.
Yeah. But Noah Brown's second. So it's Ertz at 24, Brown at 21, Terry at 14.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like, what's Terry's salary, by the way? Because I know we glossed over. Oh my gosh.
I know. Well, he keeps scoring these freakish long touchdowns because he's a good football player.
That might be, and this hurts because I fought for Terry for so long on this show. Not always to the best results, mind you, but that might be one of the worst salaries I've seen for a current role in a while.
Potentially. Yeah.
So at a certain point, like Noah Brown's got to do more with his targets. I think it's fair to question what the pure yardage upside is. But if you're playing Jaden, like, you can play Noah Brown. Same as Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you straight up, though. Bateman or Brown?
Probably Noah Brown.
Like, he should get more work.
If you look at him since he came back from his injury, just so I have a bit of a larger sample than you. 20% target share, 29% deep. He had 10 targets last week. Again, this shouldn't be happening, but it is. Titans pass defense is not one I fear necessarily. So, like, I don't know, man. Like, I'll get there at times. I'll probably have more Bateman just because, like, I'll have more Lamar and Hurts lineups. So, but like, yeah, not considering other stuff. Like, yeah, I guess I get Noah Brown. I'm embarrassed about it.
Any consideration doing like an Alec Pierce?
Nope. I love Alec Pierce. I think he's an awesome football player, but his role is not going to change without Josh Downs. Like, there are more targets available, but like, I think AD Mitchell's probably the more likely guy to actually earn those targets, because like his role is actually changing. Mitchell's salary is $5,000. I think I'd rather use Adonai Mitchell or AD Mitchell than Pierce, just because like his role is actually changing. He can better earn targets while on the field.
Yeah, I ain't gonna use either, but
yeah, I agree.
I like both of these guys, but
yeah,
I'm not gonna get there. Frankly, there's enough where we don't have to. So Love's at receiver.
Mooney, McConkey,
Zay,
and either Zay or Pickens.
Zay Pickens.
Yeah.
And then we would love to get to AJ Brown and Nakua.
Yep.
I would prefer Nakua for a semblance of safety and upside.
Getting there. You're talking me into it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Tight end. Not getting to kill 70, 80 if Purdy plays. Like, he's an awesome football player. Just like really high salary. Taysom, though, like, yeah, cool. Like, Trey McBride is not allowed to score touchdowns. Taysom Hill, all he does is score touchdowns. Like, why would I not use Taysom Hill at 7,000? I know McBride's role is amazing. Oh my gosh.
It is great.
Like 28% share in the games he's played, 30% red zone share, again, despite having no receiving touchdowns somehow. But like, again, it's Taysom, who's at 99 yards in scrimmage per game without Olave, 66% per game for the entire year, which is still really good. 24% red zone share in the games without Olave. Like, that's a sick role. So I prefer Taysom over McBride. McBride actually makes a discussion, though, which is a credit to him. But like, Taysom for me over him.
Yeah. when you have a player who can get you 40,
yep,
that matters. Not saying he's going to. Not saying McBride doesn't have a ceiling, but it matters.
It does.
Injected in a game that could be just wild. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we scroll down. I'm not getting to Hawkinson 65. Not getting to Auden at 62. I'll use Dallas Goedert though if there's no Devontae Smith. If Devontae Smith plays, probably will not use Goddard. But if he sits, I'll use Goddard. How are you in the rest of the 6,000 range with those three guys?
I agree. Okay. Hawkinson's role got a lot better last week as he's working his way back. Probably don't need to force it with Auden. Mm-hmm. Goddard without Devontae though does help out a lot to get to Lamar with Zay.
Yep.
I want to make sure that doesn't come at the expense of AJ Brown, but
right.
Goddard without Devontae is very likely to be in my main lineup.
Yep. I would say the same thing for me.
Behind this game. Okay.
Yep. No Evan Engram at 58. He can't hurt me, I don't think. Dalton Kincaid probably not going to go with any injury. It's a bummer because he's facing Fred Warner, so actually it's a blessing. Mark Andrews 56. Fine. Pitts 54. Fine. Disley 52, fine. I don't see a lot of tight ends calling to me other than Taysom, McBride, and Goddard. Anyone calling to you?
It's kind of Taysom, Goddard. I like McBride still. Yeah. Not sure I'm going to get there because I'm not McBride with Aaron Jones. Sure. I think that's going to be a factor. Yep. Taysom and Puka, pretty sick if you can make that work, especially a Herbert, Ladd, Mooney kind of stack. That's fun. But I think right now, tight end 1 is Goddard, assuming there's no Devontae. So he'd be my love.
Okay.
Are you high enough on Taysom to say he's a love and you want to go out of your way to get to him?
It'd be like Taysom and Bucky Irving versus Dallas Goedert and Alvin Kamara. I'm probably going Kamara and Goddard in that combo.
Yeah.
But
if Devontae Smith plays, things get a little shakier.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Definitely. And then I'd be higher on Andrews, higher on Pitts, and higher on Disley because they're salary savers there. So I'd be okay. And maybe Hunter Henry. I don't know. Probably not, but he's fine. 51.
Yeah. I think I'd bump up Hawkinson a little bit, but
at that point, I'd rather just get to McBride, I think.
Sure.
Okay. So loves to me, Taysom, and then Goddard if there's no Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith plays, I guess, just Andrews to get exposure to the offense, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know it's
stupid. Tough. There is some ceiling at tight end. Yeah. We're not going to probably be able to play Kittle, but
correct.
He's there. Taysom's there. McBride's there. I agree with you. It's Taysom and Goddard without Devontae. From there, I guess. Oh gosh, Andrews, you're right.
Yep. Sorry.
Maybe.
Didn't mean to break it to you. Okay.
Brother.
Defense. Scroll to the bottom. Why are the Falcons 31? That's odd.
Where would you have them?
38. It's a tight spread. I feel like the teams down here should be 10-point dogs.
Yeah.
Or the Jags. I'll have a non-zero number of Falcons in my lineup.
Atlanta did jump out to me.
Yeah.
The Bengals Jags, a bit,
given the Texans struggles.
They read out pretty well for me, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too. They're a terrible defense, but that doesn't matter for this. So I'd consider it. I would consider the Bengals at 34, honestly, against Russ pretty easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Jets will face some passing volume.
Patriots, honestly, facing a quarterback with some accuracy issues. I don't hate that.
Yeah.
Wow, we got some actually good low salary defenses this week. How about that? Like, I think the Falcons should be where the Ravens are, like 39. Like, that's the range they should be in.
It's been a while since we've had multiple low salary defenses, I feel like.
Right? So I'll filter through Falcons, Jags, Bengals. Probably get some Saints. No, that's stupid. Don't do that. Patriots, Jets. I'll filter through all those, I think. Yeah. I think that's great. Okay.
Finally
Any
a break.
Final thoughts for you on this week 13 main slate as things stand right now?
Just got to stay at least Sunday morning, catch back up on everything. There's going to be stuff that we can't really foresee happening. It's going to happen.
Brock Purdy magically has a shoulder injury that he can't play through. And his elbow hurts now. And all of a sudden the Juwan Jennings and Christian McCaffrey love we had last week is gone. Like stuff like that can happen again.
Yeah. Especially with an extra day in between. I mean, that happened to us last week. So yeah, stay tuned. Check the weather too. That's going to be hard to predict out this far, but I feel pretty good about the slate as it is.
It's fun.
I think we went over the contingencies well.
Yeah.
And something has got to break our way. And even if not, it's not contingent on Braylon Allen. So I feel good.
I did too. I think that it's a fun slate regardless, which is encouraging for sure, especially this early in the week. That is all that we have here for today and this week. Again, if you want our Thanksgiving show for DFS thoughts there, go to the FanDuel Research Podcast feed or over on the YouTube page. And again, subscribe to get these shows as they go live each and every Thursday. Typically, we are 10 a.m. Eastern on the YouTube page streaming there. So subscribe there and enable notifications so you're notified as we go live each and every Thursday. Brandon, if people have questions for you on the socials, where can they find you there?
I'm on X at Gdula13, GDULA13, and on Blue Sky at Gdula.
And I am on both X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. You can also find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. Have a great holiday. Be safe, be happy, be healthy. Ignore football on Friday and Saturday so you can spend time with your loved ones. Check back in Saturday or Sunday and fill out some baller lineups. We'll talk to you all once again next week. This has been The Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast.